Hello, my name is Margaret, and I'm the owner of Blue Monkey Tea Company in Pittsburgh. And in today's live presentation, which I do every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be talking about Russian tea, about history of Russian tea, about customs, about foods that go with, and very, very interesting ways of preparation. Okay, what do I have here? Let's make some Russian tea. Yeah, and I will explain to you later what I did. But first, I'm going to throw a lot of tea into this little teapot, and I'm going to fill this up with hot water from Samovar. Big urn with hot water. Well, it's actually, this one is electric and it heats up water, all the time. But you can also, in old times, they had ones that were heated with coal or pine cones, and they served very well. And they're still out there. If you happen to come across some old samovar, then it's probably worth quite a bit as an antique. Okay, so this is super strong, and I'm not going to drink it like this, because if I did, I would be I would be probably drunk. And yes, there is such thing as getting drunk on tea. So first tea arrives to Russia in 17th century. It was brought to Tsar Mikhail as a gift from Mongolian ruler, and this tea didn't taste good to him. He actually didn't care for it. Eventually, his son Alexei, he took to it. He liked tea, and also he said that it was helping him with his stomach problems. So this one of the reasons why tea became popular, because people thought that was like a healthy medicinal drink. This tea was very expensive. First tea that was imported to Russia was actually come from England, because they were the only country one of the very few that had trading relationship with China, and they were bringing Chinese imports. Eventually, Russia started buying tea directly from China, and tea would travel on the caravan, camels, mules, horses, and the trip from China to Moscow sometimes took several months, sometimes up to 1.5 years. And that brings me, hi Chris, and that brings me to story of the tea called Russian Caravan, which we actually have here. Russian Caravan, during these long journeys, tea that was being transported would permeate with smoke from campfires, and by the time it made it to the destination, it would have that kind of smoky flavor and aroma. And somehow Russians got to like it. It became pretty popular. Right now, Russian Caravan is made in a similar way on purpose. It is a combination of couple black teas, mostly Chinese tea, and also Indian tea. Now, the Chinese tea used in blending is called lapsang souchong, which is tea made into a smoky tea by smoking leaves above the pine wood. And so the lapsang souchong actually is tea processed in a way that the processing gives it smoky flavor. Now, originally tea they used to call it caravan tea, just like that. That was accidental tea that was made during the journey by just being exposed to campfires. at night. Привет, здравствуйте. Сегодня я буду говорить о чай. This was Russian. Hi, John. Okay, so I speak Russian because I grew up in Poland during the communist era, and we had Russian in school, and I still remember somehow, and it comes handy when I do talk about Russian tea. So because in the beginning tea was very scarce, it was imported from England and then from China, but the journey was so long, so it was very expensive, and only nobility could afford to have tea. Apparently 200 grams of tea, which is about 7 ounces, cost as much as a horse at one point. So regular folks, they drank other things. Among them was tea called Ivan chai. And this Ivan chai is still popular. Ivan chai. Ivan chai is tea, not real tea from Camellia sinensis, but it is made from a different plant, fireweed. Fireweed has like beautiful purple flowers and also leaves, and the leaves are used to make Ivan tea. They can be processed very similarly to regular tea. People in 17th, 18th century Russia, they also drank honey and other herbs. And when they drank honey with herbs, they actually kind of started inventing Samovar, which is otherwise you can translate it into self-boiler. And they used to have vessels similar to that would keep heating honey with herbs, and therefore made honey into liquid form. It would liquefy. Sounds pretty good, huh? Now, with the construction of the Suez Canal, the tea journey from China to Russia got shortened up, and because tea they didn't have to go all around the world to either England on clipper ships or through the Gobi desert, on a camel caravan, but they could travel by sea much faster, and eventually made it to Black Sea and Odessa. And Odessa is a port in it used to be Russia. So tea price goes down and it becomes available to almost pretty much everybody. And even in end of 19th, beginning of the 20th century, the tea was free. They had sort of like first aid kits for very, very popular people, for very, very poor people. Popular too. So the first aid kits in Russia at that time contained a small bag of tea, sugar made with molasses, and bread. And that was like a survival pack. This tea, Russian tea, came from China, but they also had their own, and still do have their own plantations, gardens. Not so much in Russia right now, because now it's a territory of Georgia, that was former Soviet Republic, but right now it's an independent country, Georgia. Georgia has a very good climate. It's very warm. It's on the border with the Black Sea, and the tea is doing really well. In fact, we do have some Georgian tea in the store, and I absolutely love it. It's black tea, but they also make green tea now. But this tea is beautifully processed, very large leaves. In fact, I'm brewing it here. Uh, and this tea, um, we consider it actually one of the highest grade teas here in my store. Um, Now let's go back a little bit to a history, because you know I'm a history buff when it comes to tea. So, uh, tea goes, the price goes down. People are can afford tea, becomes very popular. And one of the most favorite ways of making tea in Russia is by way of using samovar. 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 My samovar is electric, but the original samovars, they had sort of similar, shape, but they had a pipe inside, which was filled with either pine cones or coal, and lit up. And that duct, like a pipe inside, was what was heating up the water. On the top of the samovar would go a small teapot, chainik, with zavarka. Zavarka. Zavarka is a very, very strong tea. Did you see how much tea I put in there? I almost filled it up halfway with tea leaves. So what is created in this? It's a super, super strong tea extract. And the traditional way to drink tea in Russia, and in Poland actually too, is to place a little bit of zavarka in your cup and fill this up with hot water. So you're basically just diluting the zavarka and creating just a regular strength tea. This is sort of miniature stakan, which is a very popular cup to use in Russia and also other Eastern European countries. Glass cup, and usually very ornate. This is very simple, but they can be much more ornate, and I'm sure you guys saw these holder, because tea in Russia is served very, very hot, and there's no way you can hold that glass with your hands. These are very small. They're actually more like a Turkish style, but this is the closest I could get to show you stakan with podstakannik. Stakan, podstakannik. Tea is sweetened either with sugar, mostly sugar cubes, or preserve, or honey. Honey is also used to sweeten Russian tea. Usually the preferred marmalade, honey, preserve is raspberry preserve. That's like very classic Russian preserve too. They basically add it to tea, or you can just have a little bit in a spoon and drink tea, have a little bit jam and tea. And the same with sugar. There are actually several different ways of using sugar cubes with Russian tea. One of them is that you can just dip a little bit of sugar cube in your tea, take a small bite, drink tea. This is really, really good tea, I have to tell you. It's very full bodied. I'm drinking Georgia tea right now. Full bodied, and it has like undertones of almost like honey and a little bit of like grapes. By the way, in Georgia, they also grow grapes and make wine, and oranges. They grow oranges. The other way of using sugar was to basically put the whole sugar cube in your mouth and just keep sipping tea. In times where tea was very scarce and people were too poor to have, I mean, they had tea, but the sugar was not very available. They called it naprigliatku. And that's something very unusual. It was just by looking at sugar. Naprigliatku means just looking at sugar and drinking tea. I guess that would be a good way of dieting, huh? Okay, Paula is asking, do they use milk or cream? No, milk is not used with Russian tea. Lemon maybe, but not as much as like in other countries. I used to drink tea with lemon and sugar in Poland, but generally it's black tea and with sugar, preserve, and things to go with, because tea in Russia is drank all day or for quite a long time, because having tea in Russia is to sit at the table with friends, with family, and you drink tea, you eat some cakes, or I have this special item here wrapped around the samovar called shushki. 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 This is like a cross between cookie and bread. And they like to dip it. Let's just do that. Perfect accompaniment to tea. And when they're hanging like this on the samovar, they get nice and warm too. Kristen is asking, can you reuse the tea leaves? Yes. I mean, if you have this zavarka, the concentrated tea in a little teapot, once you're done, you can still pour more hot water and probably get another nice infusion. It's probably not going to be as strong as the first one, but this little pot of zavarka is going to make a lot of tea. I imagine I probably could make 10 mugs of tea out of it, because as you remember, I told you in the beginning of this presentation, we just pour a little bit. Let me just do it on we'll show you the bigger glass here. Shushki. Very nice. How much tea should you, Hannah's asking, how much tea should you use for a pot to make this way? Hannah, I filled it out halfway. Like I just
which of these do you want?
Yeah, fill it up halfway. Bigger one, thanks. It's supposed to be really dark. Really dark. Oh my goodness. This smells so good. Don't drink this, because you can get drunk from that. So this is zavarka, and you put just a little bit in your cup, and then you fill it up. I mean, of course, if you don't have a samovar, you just fill it up with hot water from the kettle. But I happen to have a samovar today, so let me do this. Nice and hot. So as you see, by using just a little bit of the concentrate of tea and filling up the rest of the cup with hot water, I created a regular cup of tea. tea, delicious tea. I'm gonna have some sugar. Oh, dip it first. It's delicious. So if you find yourself visiting Russian household, as soon as you walk in, they're gonna ask you, "You're gonna have some tea." They might not even ask you. They might say, "Well, let's sit and have some tea." And along with tea, you're probably gonna be offered some cake, some pastries, or sushki. And you're going to enjoy the conversation. Just keep adding tea, drinking more. Sounds good. When speaking of the samovar, the first production of samovar was started in 1778 by brothers Lisitsyn brothers, Ivan and Nazar, in Tula, Tula, in Tula. And yeah, they still make samovars. And samovars are not just only used in Russia, but they also became popular in Turkey, in Iran, in Azerbaijan, and basically Middle East, as you know, because Middle East, especially Iran, they have very similar setup for drinking their tea. And oh, speaking of, like in old times, the nobility, the upper class, they actually had 3 samovars. One samovar was to just heat up water that was used to wash dishes and also to wash hands and all that. The second samovar was a tea, designated tea samovar. And the third one was just very ornate, beautiful, and it was just a prop. It was just a decor to show off, a mark of the wealth and nobility. Mine is pretty good. Huh? There's 3 different regions in Russia, former Russia, that grow tea, but I'm focusing today on Georgia, and I'm drinking Georgia tea as well. Georgia has a very good climate for growing tea. It's hot, it's humid, it's close to the sea, and it all started in 1893. Merchant Popov invited Cantonese tea expert to help him establish tea gardens. And this expert actually brought seeds and cuttings from China. So the tea in Georgia, like I said, originated in China, this cuttings and seeds. It was doing very well, the gardens, but unfortunately under the communist rule, it went kind of downhill and the tea declined. Tea was widely still available for Russian population. It was usually a blend of Georgia tea and Chinese and Indian tea, but not of very good quality. I'm going to show you something, and I think we're all going to do research on this because I don't believe in that, but I saw a video on YouTube and made by a Russian lady, and she said, here. I'm gonna show you what, it's a very, very controversial thing, in my opinion, but who knows. And don't laugh. You ready? A tea with a pickle. Do you think it's truth? Do you think they really did that? I'm drinking tea with a pickle. I think that tea doesn't change at all. But maybe that pickle at the end might be really delicious because it's going to be saturated with tea. So we're going to have a tea pickle. I think I'm going to ask all of you to do research on that and see what you can find out. Whether there was really such thing as drinking tea with a pickle. I love pickles. I love Polish pickles, and these are actually Polish pickles. And okay, so let's just review. Russian tea goes way back to the beginning of the second part of 17th century, when tea is given as a gift to Niet. Amanda says niet. But you know what, guys? I think it's gonna be really delicious, that pickle. What else can we put in tea?
Butter and salt.
Egg? Maybe? Boiled egg? Because they make tea eggs. Oh, butter and salt. So normally, usually, I've heard about Tibet. You know how they make tea in Tibet? They will add yak, butter, and salt to it. And apparently it's the same, very similar in Siberia. They do that too.
And jelly.
Jelly, yeah, well, I talked about jam. Usually it's raspberry jam. Oh, let me have some more sushka. Pickle sushka. This is so good. Can't talk now. So in review, let's have some tea. I picked up this in a Russian store. It's a big box of tsar Alexander II. Другой. Черный царский, which means tea of tsar, black tea of tsar. Черный chai с ароматом бергемота. I think you understand that. See, I can teach you some Russian here. So tea is, in the beginning, very expensive. It's only available to upper class. One of the reasons is that it's very limited import, mostly from England, later from China, but through a very, very long tea road. It takes over a year to get tea from China to Russia, to Moscow. And on the way, tea becomes a little smoky, or quite smoky, because at night, smoke from campfires permeates the bags with tea. But Russians seem to like it. And that's how now tea called Russian Caravan is very popular. And of course, they don't make it by traveling, but for a year and a half and having it smoked naturally by campfires. But it's part of this tea is smoky tea called lapsang souchong, which is processed in a way that it becomes gains the smoky flavor. Okay, and then tea, once they build the Suez Canal, the trip is getting shorter. There's more tea available. It comes to Russia through port of Odessa, and tea is always available, even free. The poorest people were getting tea in their first aid kits, like survival kits that consist of tea, molasses, sugar, and bread. By the way, Russian bread is delicious. And communists provided during the communism from revolution 1917 through recent years. There was always tea in Russia, but it wasn't a very good quality. However, Russians always made it good because Russians like black tea, strong tea, and they would, brew it with zavarka. In fact, speaking of zavarka, you don't need samovar to make this. You can just make this very, very strong brew in any teapot. And at my home in Poland, we used to keep this on the counter just like this, and it doesn't matter if it gets cold, because once you pour a little bit in your cup, even if it's cold, and then add hot water, and then we would just add hot water from the kettle. The tea is perfect. In fact, it is so perfect. It's not even too hot, because once you have a little bit of the cold, strong brew and you add hot water, it becomes a little cooler, but still very nice and warm. Now, in Russia, there's still a strong tradition. People are very, very used to drinking strong, full-bodied black tea, but there's a wave of new tea trends coming in. And of course, like everywhere else, people start drinking artisanal teas. They start drinking green teas. And of course, Georgia tea, that was sort of neglected during the communism. Right now, it's again in private hands. The gardens are private, owned by private persons, and so the tea is much, much higher quality than it used to be over these several years of the communism. Okay, any questions? And yeah, let's check on that pickled tea, because I'm not sure. Oh, I want to tell you about this interesting tea invention called shifir. Basically, what happened in prisons, and not only in Russia, but also in Russia, and especially in those gulags, in Siberia. Apparently, people in these labor camps and in prisons, they didn't have access to vodka. And so what they did, they brewed tea super, super strong. I believe it was even stronger than this, because what they did, they were actually boiling and boiling and boiling black tea until it became almost like a tar. And when you do that, the caffeine changes, and I just throw away my notes, but I think I have them here. The caffeine breaks down into adenine and guanine, and it actually causes not only heart racing, but you can also get dizzy and slightly euphoric. Don't try this. It's not a very good idea. I'm just telling you as a historical, custom fact. But apparently it was very, very popular in prisons, and still might be. And it's called shifir. The one of the side effects is vomiting, so hopefully that will prevent you from trying. I'm not recommending, I'm just giving you this fact as a fact. Shifir. But you can get, still, a lot of people get like really, you can get really happy with tea, because tea, as we know, contains L-theanine, and L-theanine is ingredient that stimulates alpha brain waves, and it makes us, happy. So drink more tea, drink like Russian, or drink like Chinese, or drink like Polish, or like Irish. And speaking of, there's so many different ways of drinking tea. There's so many different rituals. Anywhere you travel, chances are they're gonna offer you tea, and it's gonna be offered in a different way. So knowing tea customs is a really good thing, because even if you don't know the language, you will make friends much easier through the language of tea. Let's drink tea. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. It's a wrap. This was Margaret from Blue Monkey Tea Shop in Pittsburgh. I was talking about Russian tea today. Let's drink up. Was it on?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still live?
Yeah.
No!
Yeah, you are. Do you want to eat the pickle?
I will eat the pickle. Pickle. This is behind the scene, guys. So if you, Mitchell makes me eat that pickle. Don't do that. Still pretty spicy. These are actually pretty spicy, but there's something about this pickle being warm and at the same time crunchy. It's very comforting. Pickle tea.
Spasiba.
Spasiba means thank you. Amanda, I know you are a polyglot. She also knows French, Spanish. It's good. I'm even dipping. Oh, it's actually really good. Oh, I didn't tell you about one other custom in Russia. So they used to drink tea from saucers because it would cool off sooner, and it was actually very customary for even among the upper class to pour tea onto a saucer and drink it from the saucer. Okay, спасибо большое. Думаю, что этот класс, it's English, был приятный, и вы научились немножко о русском чаю. Спасибо. До свидания. На здоровье.